Ever wonder how a whole country makes its rules? Imagine a giant team, like hundreds strong, all trying to work together.
Uh-huh. Sounds chaotic.
It can be, but that's kind of the idea behind the U.S. House of Representatives, and that's what we're diving deep into today.
Right. We're taking your sources, the info you gave us, and pulling out the key stuff.
Exactly. We'll be using the U.S. House of Representatives page on USA.Gov and the Wikipedia entry for the House.
And the mission?
Make the House of Representatives make sense, like really clear what it is, what it does, why you should maybe care.
Good plan.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it's part of a bigger thing.
Yeah, Congress. The House is just one piece of that larger rulemaking group.
Okay, so let's start there then. What is Congress, basically?
Well, think of it as the main rulemaking team for the whole United States, instead of, one king or something.
We have this group, and it's got two main parts, you said.
Yep, two chambers, like a body with two arms, the House of Representatives and the Senate.
And they both have to agree to make a national law.
Pretty much, yeah. They work together. Or sometimes against each other, but ideally together.
Okay, so let's focus on one arm,
Yeah.
the House of Representatives. What's its specific deal?
Right. So the House, it's one of those two key parts of Congress. Sometimes people call it the lower house, but the Constitution doesn't actually use that term.
Okay, not officially lower, but its job is.
Its main job is working with the Senate to pass or defeat proposed federal laws, which we call bills.
Bills, right. So someone has an idea for a rule.
They write it up as a bill, and then both the House and the Senate have to pass the exact same version.
And if they both pass it?
Then it goes to the president. The president can sign it, yay, it's a law, or veto it.
Veto means no.
Basically, yeah, a rejection. Though Congress can try to override that veto, but that's harder.
Got it. It's a multi-step process. Now, you said hundreds of people in the House. How many exactly?
Okay, get this. There are 435 voting members.
435. Wow. That's a lot of folks. How do they decide who gets those seats? Does every state get, like, 10?
No, it's based on population, how many people live in each state.
Ah, okay. So bigger states get more representatives.
Exactly. They count everyone up every 10 years with the census, and then they figure out how many seats each state gets based on those numbers.
Makes sense. More people, more voices. What about the really small states, population-wise? Do they get shut out?
Nope. The rules say every single state gets at least one representative no matter how few people live there.
That seems fair. So everyone has some voice.
Right. It balances the population thing a bit. Like, California has the most reps, 52.
52. Whoa.
Yeah. And then you've got states like Alaska, Delaware, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming. They each just have one.
Big difference. 52 versus 1 really shows that population connection.
Definitely. Now, you noticed I said voting members. There are others too, right?
Ah, yes. The sources mention non-voting delegates. What's their story?
So these delegates represent places that aren't states, like Washington, D.C., Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands.
And they don't vote.
They can talk, they can be on committees, argue points, but they don't get that final vote on passing a bill into law. Puerto Rico also has a resident commissioner, serves 4 years, similar deal.
Interesting. So they're in the room, but don't have the final say on the vote itself. Okay. How do these 435 voting members get the job?
We, the people, vote for them in elections.
When do those happen?
Every 2 years in November.
Every 2 years. That seems frequent.
Yeah. The idea is to keep them really connected to the folks back home. If they have to face re-elections so often, they, theoretically pay more attention to what their voters want.
Accountability. Makes sense. So when I vote, am I voting for someone from my whole state?
Not usually, unless your state only has one representative anyway. Most states are divided into areas called congressional districts.
Districts, okay.
Yeah, and you vote for the person running to represent your specific district, your local area.
So my vote helps choose the person speaking for my community in D.C.
That's the idea. And usually the person who gets the most votes in that district wins. That's called plurality voting. Most states use it.
Usually.
Are there other ways?
Yeah, a few states do things differently, like Alaska and Maine use ranked choice voting, and Georgia and Louisiana have a 2-round system. So it varies a bit.
Ranked choice? That's interesting. What do you think is the most striking thing about how they're chosen?
For me, it's that 2-year term. It really emphasizes that direct connection, that responsiveness they're supposed to have. It makes the House feel, closer to the ground level than the Senate with its 6-year terms.
That's a good point, that constant election cycle. Okay, so they get elected, they go to Washington. What do they actually do all day?
Well, they meet in the U.S. Capitol building. Big fancy place.
Seen pictures, lots of marble.
Right. And yeah, a huge part of their job is talking about and voting on those bills, the potential new laws.
Lots of debating and voting. But the sources said the House has some special powers, stuff only it can do. Yes, it does. Three main ones stick out. First, anything to do with raising money like taxes or deciding how the government spends money, those bills have to start in the House.
Ah, the power of the purse, they sometimes call it.
Exactly. The Senate can change those bills later, but the initial spark has to come from the House.
Okay, money bills start in the House. What else?
Second big one, impeachment. The House has the sole power to start the process of accusing a federal official like the president or a judge of serious wrongdoing.
So they bring the charges, basically.
Yeah, they vote on whether to impeach.
Yeah.
If they do, then it goes over to the Senate, and the Senate holds a trial to decide whether to remove the person from office.
Okay, House accuses, Senate tries.
Good.
Got it. And the third special power.
This one's rare, but super important. If there's a tie or no candidate gets a majority of the votes in the Electoral College for president.
Which is how we normally elect the president.
Right. If that system doesn't produce a clear winner, the House of Representatives chooses the president.
Wow. How does that work? Do all 435 members vote individually?
No, it's weirder. Each state's delegation gets one vote. So California's 52 reps have to agree on one vote, and Wyoming's single rep gets one vote.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
quite a twist. So state delegations vote as blocks. That gives small states a lot of clout in that specific scenario.
Definitely. It hasn't happened in a very long time, but the power is there.
Okay. Now, managing 435 people must require some serious organization. Who are the leaders in the House?
You bet. The top dog is the Speaker of the House.
The Speaker. Heard that title.
Yeah, they're elected by the members of the House, usually from the party that has the majority. They have a ton of influence controlling the schedule, what gets debated. As of now, April 2025, that's Mike Johnson.
So the Speaker really runs this show day to day. Who else is important?
Then you have the majority leader and the minority leader. They lead the two main political parties in the House.
So one for the party in charge, one for the main opposition party.
Exactly. They're like the chief strategists for their parties. Right now, Steve Scalise is the Republican majority leader, and Hakeem Jeffries is the Democratic minority leader.
Okay, Speaker, majority leader, minority leader, anyone else?
Yep, you've got the whips, majority whip and minority whip.
Whips?
Yeah.
Cracking a whip.
Sort of. Their job is to, well, whip up support. They count votes. They persuade members of their party to vote the way the leadership wants. Keep everyone a train, basically.
Ah, the enforcers, kind of?
You could say that. Tom Emmer is the Republican majority whip, and Catherine Clark is the Democratic minority whip currently.
Speaker, leaders, whips.
Great.
Makes sense. You need that structure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's walk through making a law again. But with these roles in mind, how does it actually flow?
Right. So, step one, a member introduces a bill. Any member can do this.
Okay, Representative Smith has an idea.
Exactly. Then, usually, the speaker sends that bill to a committee. Like if it's about farming, it goes to the Agriculture Committee.
These committees are smaller groups.
Yeah, focused on specific topics. They really dig into the details, hold hearings, maybe talk to experts, and they can make changes, amend the bill. This is where a lot of the detailed work happens.
So it gets refined, or maybe even killed in committee.
Absolutely. A lot of bills die in committee. But if the committee approves it,
Then what?
then it usually goes to the full House for debate. This is where all 435 members can potentially speak about it. The leaders, majority, minority, help shape this debate.
And after the talking.
Comes the voting. As we said, could be a voice vote, all in favor say aye, or, more often for big things, a recorded vote where everyone's vote is logged electronically.
And they need a majority to pass it.
Usually, yes, a simple majority of those present and voting.
Okay, that seems relatively straightforward, if potentially contentious. Now, you mentioned earlier checks and balances. How does that fit in with the House's work?
Well, it's crucial. Just because the House passes a bill doesn't mean it's law. It also has to pass the Senate in the exact same form.
Ah, so the Senate is a check on the House, and vice versa.
Totally. If the Senate passes a different version, they have to figure out a compromise, often in what's called a conference committee, with members from both chambers.
So more negotiation.
Lots of it. And then, even if both the House and Senate agree, the president can still veto it. That's another big check.
And overriding the veto needs that supermajority.
Yeah, a two-thirds vote in both the House and the Senate, Very tough to do. So it really forces cooperation, or at least attempts at it.
It prevents any one part from just running away with things. Okay, let's rewind a bit. Where did this whole House idea even come from?
It goes way back to the Constitution. Written in 1787, the framers wanted one part of the legislature to be really closely tied to the people.
The People's House, sometimes called.
Exactly. Direct elections, those short two-year terms, that was all designed to make representatives directly accountable to the voters in their districts.
And when did they actually start doing business?
The first session of the House met in 1789. Not in D.C., though. First in New York City, then Philadelphia for a bit, before Washington, D.C. became the permanent capital.
Huh, didn't know that. And has it always been 435 members?
Nope. It grew as the country's population grew. More states, more people, more representatives. But they capped it at 435 back in 1911, basically.
They capped it. Why? Just getting too big?
Pretty much, yeah. Concerns about it becoming unwieldy. There was a brief temporary increase when Alaska and Hawaii became states, but then it went right back to 435, and that number's been fixed by law ever since, reapportioned among the states after each census.
So the total number is fixed, but which states get how many can change every 10 years?
It's fascinating how this structure, set up over 200 years ago, still shapes so much today, having all those different voices.
It's meant to reflect the whole country, right? All the different regions and viewpoints.
That's the goal. And listeners, you actually have one of these representatives. You can look up who represents your specific district. Their job is literally to be your voice in Congress.
Yeah, and the decisions made there, they can really impact your community, your daily life. It's worth paying attention to.
Definitely. Which makes me wonder, and maybe listeners can think about this too, if you could ask your representative one question, what would it be?
Ooh, good question. What would you ask? Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you're finding this useful, give us a like, subscribe. It helps us know we're on the right track. What did you find most interesting, listener?
So yeah, let's wrap the main points. The House of Representatives, 435 voting members, elected every 2 years from districts based on population. They work with the Senate to make laws, but have special powers over money bills and impeachment. Led by the Speaker, key part of the U.S. government.
Hopefully that clears things up a bit.
We hope so. And speaking of helping out, we wanted to mention our Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive GoFundMe campaign.
Right. We're trying to do more of this, taking complex topics, breaking them down based on the sources, staying nonpartisan.
And to do that, reach more people, maybe improve the sound quality a bit, make things even better, we're asking for a little support.
If you find value in what we do, if you appreciate these deep dives, please consider checking out the GoFundMe link in the show notes. Any contribution helps us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for tuning in for this deep dive on the House.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. And here's something to chew on. 435 voices. That brings a lot of perspectives, which is great for representing a diverse country. But it can also make agreement really hard, right? Things can move slowly. What do you think? What are the biggest pros and cons of having representation structured this way? Definitely something worth pondering.